Welcome to this latest edition of the Real Deal podcast, The Wire Remixed. I'm your host, Ril Dil, Quinn. Of course, as always, joined by one Robert Sapp. How you doing today?
Doing well, doing well. Let's get into it. Season 2 is here.
Yeah. I know you've been looking forward to
I
season.
have been.
Um, me too. It's thought a lot. Was thinking a lot this week about this season and just the transition from season one to season two. Of course, this first episode is called Ebb Tide. It was directed by Ed Bianchi, who's done episodes. He produced, not produced, directed episodes of Sopranos, Boardwalk Empire. So he's done a lot of those big time HBO shows. This episode, the epigraph was "Ain't never gonna be the way it was. Ain't never gonna be what it was" by Little Big Roy, who was one of the checker men, one of the portsmen, divadors, if you want to call them, who said that. Now, it was very curious to find, because I'm fascinated now by these rankings of each episode. That's why I state them every week. This was the lowest rated episode in Wire history, ranked
Yeah.
60th.
As I was watching it, I was like, I bet this is a low one.
Yeah, ranked
Yeah,
60th.
yeah.
Well, somebody
I
had to.
adored this episode. I
Yes,
adored this episode. But as I was watching, I was like, I bet this is a low ranked one. As a matter of fact, I bet most of the episodes in season 2 are on the bottom half of the wire.
yeah.
I bet. Yep.
Well, the bottom line is there had to be there had to be a last place episode.
Yeah, absolutely.
Somebody had to finish last.
Absolutely.
Now, a lot of
Depending upon your viewpoint.
yes, a lot of controversy going into this season. You had coming off a classic season, season one. You come into season two, and now, one of the reasons why people were frustrated because we moved off the streets completely, not completely, but as being the main focus of the season, and you had to learn more. Like you had to learn more characters. Like one of the problems that people had with season one at the beginning was the fact that there's people complaining that there are too many characters. Now you go to season two, it's like, oh shit, I gotta learn about the Greeks and these checkers. I mean, I gotta learn some more new characters on top of the characters that I've already, are just getting to know. So people are frustrated by that from that standpoint as well. I'll say this: there's no way season two. First of all, Simon had it in his whole, and he had mapped out the whole 5 seasons before season two was even made. Every season was mapped out in Simon and Ed Burns in their minds in terms of what they wanted to do and what wanted to accomplish. With that being said, there's no way. The reason why season two turned out to be what it was is they had to in order to flush out the Barksdale investigation completely. Season two had to go in the direction that it goes into. You don't get 3 seasons of Barksdales if you jump immediately right into the Barksdales in season two and where they're the primary focus. And you don't maximize that storyline if season two does not go in the direction of the docs. So I'll say that in terms of the transition from season one to season two, in terms of why, one of the reasons why we're focusing on the docs. Not the main reason, but one of the reasons why. Opening scene, you have McNulty. And by the way, ebb tide, the definition of ebb tide, because you're gonna have a lot of these. You have a lot of these titles are going to be named after something to do with the water and something to do with the docks and marine. So ebb tide is the first one. Ebb tide is a period or state of decline. So a period of state of decline was one of the definitions of ebb tide. There are many definitions, but this was the one to me that connected the most with this particular episode. The opening scene, we have McNulty, who has been, of course, demoted. to or put on the boat through his own actions. He's in a conversation with his partner about the shipyards, and his father used to work at the shipyards, and of course, the shipyards are dead. They closed down. He mentioned that they were closed down sometime in 1973. His partner mentioned that his uncle or someone used to work at the shipyards, and that they were closed down. That gave the year that his uncle worked at the shipyards. So they're discussing that, and then they come across this boat filled with some lot of high class rich people on the boat, a lot of money on the boat who are having some boat trouble. The people pay McNulty off to kind of keep the party going, because initially they were going to ship him off I'm assuming that they were going to ship him off to the dock, but like the dude said, there are a lot of high rollers, a lot of big money on the boat. They give McNulty some money, pay McNulty off some money to keep the boat going well into the night. I just thought it was a brilliant scene. I'll let you get into it, but I thought this was a brilliant scene in terms of setting the tone of what's going to take place and the overall tone of season 2, with the payoff and with the conversation about the shipyards being dead, and with the fact that they were able to pull the boat, and there was no. If you notice, there are no ships moving. The shipyards, there are no ships, so it's kind of like if there were ships working, they wouldn't have been able to move the boat in the direction that they were moving it. What are your thoughts on this opening scene?
So I really liked how you broke down the epigram, the title of the episode. So the initial, so you have the first part of the scene where McNulty and the other guy are talking about their family members who used to work for Steel, and when they got laid off. And then the next shot you have is of the boat, and the boat's name is Capital Gains, and then it says Washington, D.C. under there. I won't go into like all that is there, but it's a tax on raw materials, a tax on steel that on one end makes certain people wealthy, and on the other end takes a lot of money from other people and from the city itself, right? And so like the big thing about The Wire season 2 is this is where it really stamps itself as being a thematic show, right? Like what people were used to. And again, I always go back to, you got to remember the time period this is in. There's fax machines in this episode. There's pickup phones. There's desk computers. So this is very clearly 2005, 2004, 2005. Like this is where we are in the time period. And also in television watching this, nobody has seen anything like this. So season 1, although it's become a classic, we didn't know the underlying themes of it outside of what we saw on a day-to-day basis. We didn't know season 1 was going to be this theme. Season 2 was going to be this theme. Season 3 was going to be this theme. Season 4, season 5. We didn't know that. Season 2 makes it very clear in that opening scene that this is going to be about a lot more than drugs. And people had a very harsh reaction to that initially because of all the different things that you said. And then on top of that, because this was uncomfortable viewing for people. Nobody knew what to do with The Wire. This was not The Sopranos. This was not Law and Order. This was something very, very different. So that's number 1. Number 2 is you like the overarching narrative about The Wire has been season 2 is about the loss of, like about the city of Baltimore and how the city was losing its infrastructure, for lack of better words, losing the things that they made. They put their hands on and that they did, right? Like the loss of that. which is, of course, 1,000% accurate. They've all said that. But then I would then add on top of this, and to pay attention to this throughout this season is also about, this is why I love this season. This season is also about poverty is not just Black people. It's
Absolutely.
not just ghetto. It's not just the ghetto. I got to apologize. I'm rushing in from outside and all this blah, blah. Anyway, so I'm a little bit amped up. Poverty's not just the ghetto. Poverty hits everybody. And when poverty does hit people who look white, who are white, they react in a very similar way in order to get money, right? And so what season 1 and season 2 do is combine the two entities together. Baltimore is a poor city. It affects poor citizens. It makes its citizens poor. And when citizens are poor, they make very, very bad choices. In terms of, very bad choices for the establishment. They make the most immediate choices for food, jobs, feeding family, taking care of family, all of that. And it can look differently depending upon where you're at in the city, but it all stems from the same place. It stems from people coming in and taking people from the outside coming in and taking out. And that's very much what that boat represents. It represents a certain segment of the population getting rich and taking out. And that's where you get the juxtaposition of those two comments, where McNulty and his boss are talking about what they've lost, and party people on the boat saying, keep this party going. We still got money to snatch out of here. And literally, the guy says, or McNulty says to him, McNulty says to him, you're like right in the middle of the harbor. He's like, well, can't you just tow us like out of the way to get out of there? And literally, not literally, thematically, figuratively, what that is representing is these fat cats from DC, very much. It says capital gains and then Washington, D.C. on the boat, right under it. These fat cats from D.C. coming in, invading their waters and taking what they want, how they want it, at what point in time they want to take it from. And not even Baltimore City Police, everything like that can do anything but just kind of move over to the side and let them do their thing, smoke their cigars while they keep partying on. Very good opening scene. Yeah, this is very much a thematic season. This is very much a thematic season. This is when The Wire became a book, for real.
No question about it. Agree with everything you just said. Also will add that McNulty looked depressed on that boat. McNulty he was cold and depressed on that boat. And nobody feeling sorry for him, but that definitely jumped out as well. His body language on that boat before he got paid off. So we move on to Valchek and Prez. Valchek, of course, is the major of the Southeastern District. We know Prez is his son-in-law. Prez is discussing all what transpired with the Barksdale investigation, the good police work that was done. He's talking to Valchek, and he might as well be talking to himself. Valchek is completely dismissing him whatsoever. Valchek is looking at his, stained glass. He's totally zoned. He's not even paying attention he's somewhat paying attention, but he's really not paying attention to what Prez is saying to him. Then Valchek goes and basically, like I sent you, maps out Prez's career. You're going to take the sergeant exam, become a sergeant, then you're going to take the lieutenant's exam and become a lieutenant. I want to mention one important thing, and go ahead, and then I'll mention one important thing about this scene.
Oh, just the reaction to the scene? Valchek is it. So on the surface, the scene is what it is, right? Przewalski is talking to Valchek about the Barksdale case and how interested is in everything that we talked about last season in terms of the high-end police work and how valuable that is and what that looks for the department. So it's very much, and Valchek is distracted by the stained window, and we know how much that's going to play such a big part of it. So also what I wanted to say, just I'll fold like back from what I was talking about into this. What I also wanted to say is the reason why this episode is the last like episode like 60 is they have to reset the table. Like they have to completely reset the table. Not only it was an entire line shift, like for hockey, right? Like literally everybody who was on the front rotation went to the back outside of like McNulty. No, literally everybody. I mean, like certain people will be brought in over time over the season, but especially for this episode, literally everybody you cared about was gone. Even the people on the police were in different separate places.
Yes.
Right? So they had to literally reset the entire table from one. And so what's going on in the scene outside of just them having a conversation about Presbeluski's career is they're starting to lay out the rules for this new season, right? Presbeluski is very much new guard. Valchek is very much old guard in terms of policing. And the show last season made a statement about what it thought about what police work should look like. But in making that statement, all of the characters were crushed. So why would anybody want to do the type of work that they were doing before? And so they're very subtly having a back and forth debate. Presbeluski is saying, he very much says, I don't want to make rank. And Valchek does not care about that, of course, because he's old guard and it's all about making rank. Of course, you want to continue your position. You want to move up the ladder, right? Also, there's themes of the American dream, right? Come here, you work hard, you blah, 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 everything like that. There's so much going on in this. But the two things that really struck me were how this simple conversation has another layer on it that is essentially starting to set you up starting to set up the rules for this new season, especially in terms of what does good police work look like.
That bam, you hit it.
Last year, or is it? last season, or is it Valchek's way?
So
you in the basement.
That leads me right into
basement. Yeah, on the boat.
That leads me right into my point. The reason why this scene is so important is because it's letting you know that in the Southeastern District that Valchek leads, they're not doing shit in terms of real police work. It's all about politics. It's all about rank. It's all about making moves from that standpoint. They're not doing real police work, and it goes back to what Daniel said to Carver. As a leader of men, if you show them shit, you're gonna get shit. If you show them how to do the job the right way, then that's what you'll get. So Valchek is Valchek is a politician. Valchek is about making rank. Valchek is about using his privilege and using context to climb the ladder. Not about doing real police work, which is why the portsmen, the checkers are doing what they're doing, which we'll talk about later in the episode, are basically freely doing what they're doing. So that, to me, that was the thing that I took out of that scene in terms of the lack of how weak the Southeastern District was from that standpoint. It starts at the top with Valchek, because you have Prez saying, look, to your point, I want to do some I did real police work. I'm all in now in terms of doing real police work. I don't want any shortcuts.
Prez is very excited.
Yes, absolutely. So that, to me, that's what I took out of that scene, that the Southeastern District they're not doing real police work down there, and that will be a recurring theme amongst within this in this season. Bodie and Shamrock. So Shamrock is a new Barksdale soldier that we get introduced to. They're driving to Philadelphia. At the, of course, at the behest of one Stringer Bell, who's in charge right now. Bodie is playing with the radio and is confused by why the radio is starting to drown out or not cut off. And, Shamrock is basically like, are you serious? But, we're leaving Baltimore and, we're close to Philadelphia. You get a Philadelphia station. And then we find out, of course, that Bodie has never left Baltimore. Callback, not a callback, but yeah, it can be. You could go to a call. You can do a callback to this, and Wallace not, out of his element, being going down to the country saying, "This is me right here, yo." So that's kind of similar. Bodie being trapped in his environment, not knowing anything outside of Baltimore, and not even knowing that once you leave the city limits, that the radio station has to change. That it's not like, because Bodie, you no satellite radio. I didn't see it was no Sirius XM.
2005.
Yeah, no, there's regular radio. So, what were your thoughts on this on that scene?
This is set up for the Roberto reveal.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. So, yeah, there'll be more to come with this particular scene. Bunk and McNulty. Bunk goes to visit McNulty on the boat, and Bunk is asking about Omar. Of course, he needs Omar for the William Gant case, which we'll see for the William Gant trial, which we will see later on in this season. And McNulty kind of brushes them off. Really doesn't go into discussing it too much. I don't know. I think it was just McNulty just being an asshole. What were your thoughts?
Same.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you have McNulty leaves the boat to go with Bunk to get a taste. Sabaka, Frank, we get introduced to Frank Sabaka and one of the other Divadors named Nat. Sabaka, of course, is the leader. He's the leader of the president of their chapter, of their union chapter, the leader of the union chapter. They're having a conversation or a disagreement about the grain pier versus the canal project. Nat wants to push the grain pier, but Sabaka wants to push the canal project because the canal project is a bigger and loftier project than what the canal than the grain pier is, but the grain pier is more realistic in Nat's eyes. So they kind of go back and forth with that, and Nat cuts, basically gives him a tongue lashing. Frank's some of his people's horse face, and another guy kind of knock Sabaka for allowing him to talk to him like that. But Frank is, Frank is about the business. What are your thoughts on this scene? Quick scene, but what were your thoughts?
I mean, a lot of it is setting the table. And so at this point in time, episode 1, we don't know what we just don't know what the grain pier. So it's introducing the language that we're going to get used to hearing.
Yes.
Over the season. So that's what that was. So it's a lot set up, which they had to do.
Yeah, Nick Sabaka, Frank, having a conversation. Now Nick Sabaka is Frank. Nick is Frank's nephew. Nick talks about the fact that he hasn't worked in 2 weeks. Hasn't worked a ship in 2 weeks, which is, we'll see that being a recurrent theme in terms of that these guys are not getting a lot of hours, a lot of days, or working a lot of ships. Sabaka and Frank gives him an assignment to go see, tells him he needs to go see the Greek. And that's the first that we hear about the Greek.
Yeah, more setup.
More setup, yes, definitely more setup. We will come to know the Greek more, over the course of this episode. Ziggy, Rob's guy.
Love me some Ziggy.
Ziggy and Frank. So Ziggy, we immediately find out about this character Ziggy, and what type of character he is. He loses a can. Some of the other shipmen basically say, Frank, we got a problem with Ziggy. Frank, they drive Frank over to see to where Ziggy's at. Ziggy is still looking for the can. Frank says to Ziggy, get your shit. Basically, you're fired. And then one of the other guys says, Ziggy basically says, Ziggy, look at this guy. He doesn't give a shit about losing his job. And then Nat says, tells him, well, he's not, because he's not fired. He's Frank's son. And then they drive away.
Yeah, that's the setup that Ziggy's Sabaka's son.
Yeah. And the fact that, with Ziggy, you already know with this guy that this guy is going to be some.
I mean, remember again, episode 1. That's why I said it's setting up that it's his son. He's a goof. I mean, yes, yeah, he's a goof.
He's a fuck up. He's a fuck up. I think even if you didn't see it, even if you first watched this episode for the first time, you can look at him losing.
I mean, yeah, by the end of the episode, absolutely. By the end of the episode, at this point in time,
not sure. You weren't sure by this point.
I mean, no, of course not. We just saw him. But you definitely know, he's Sabaka's kid, and that no matter what, it all plays a part, right? He's Sabaka's kid, and we see the way that he behaves, and so you can start to put some early 2 to do together.
So you have Daniels and Bunk. Now Daniels has been sent down to evidence control. Evidence control. He's going to look for some evidence. Bunk needs some evidence for the Gant case. In classic Daniels fashion, Daniels basically lets the other guy know who's working with him. We'll be here all night looking for evidence looking for the evidence if we have to. The thing about this scene that jumped out, there is nothing worse. Unemployment. I've been unemployed before. Unemployment it's not good not having a job, as we all know. But I can make a case that being underemployed from a psychological standpoint is just as bad. When you are working a job that is beneath you in terms of qualifications, in terms of your education, that can be demeaning. That could be rough. And coming from personal experience, it definitely could take some out of you. So imagine you're Daniels. You are on your way to becoming a major. You have a law degree, and you find yourself in your version of the pawn shop and evidence control in the evidence room. A job that, by the way, that probably either somebody retiring should be doing on their way out, or somebody in the beginning of their career should be doing. So he clearly, and again, we talked about the definition of ebb tide, a period or state of decline. Definitely a lot of these characters from previous season were in decline with their current position. You could talk McNulty, we could talk Daniels, we could talk even Kima from a mental standpoint. But this was rough for Daniels to be at this point at this position, considering where he could have been from last season. What were your thoughts?
It's easy to do the right thing when there aren't any consequences associated with it. It speaks to the volume of a person that they can do the right thing or do what they believe in. More importantly, and they know that there's significant consequences that go with it. We talked last week, was it, or the week before that? It might be both, but of Daniel cementing his character, right? I am now, no matter what's happened in the past, moving forward, I am going to hold to my principles. He made that declaration, and this shows the consequences of it. It's very real consequences. Just because you do the right thing does not mean good things will happen to you. As a matter of fact, most of the time, good things don't happen to you in the real world. And so The Wire very much tries to reflect the reality of situations. And so there's a lot to unpack about so when I was watching the Presbeluski and Valchek scene, one of the things that occurred to me the first time was Presbeluski is Ed Burns. Now, of course, I've known that Ed Burns was the police officer and the teacher. And of course, I know that's the experience. But when I was looking at it this time, I was like, oh, that's him. That's him in the role. Like, he's writing what he would say, what he would do. And so I say that to say this series is very much built off of two men's experiences in Baltimore and their knowledge of people's experiences. David Simon being a reporter and talking to a lot of people, both police, drug dealers, drug addicts, people, and they're also being a reporter, like lots of different things involved. And Ed Burns being a policeman and a teacher. And so as I was looking at now this Daniel scene and thinking about what happens, I don't know if it's necessarily wrong to play the game and to be a part of the system. I don't necessarily know if that's what they're saying is wrong about what is going on. I don't think they are saying one is good and one is bad. Because when Presbeluski was talking, he never used those words. And Ed Burns would have put those words in his mouth if he had thought, if that's what he had been saying. So I think I revert back to principle. If what you believe is that, looking at a problem and solving it in a measured and a thoughtful way gets you the result you want, then perfect, but that will lead to consequences in a system that is political. It's not just the Baltimore Police Department. That's why that scene started with capital gains, Washington, D.C. I'm going to get used to it, people. I'm going to come back to that over and over again throughout this season. That's why I said, this is very much thematic now. This is very much an open world now. And so I say that, I know we're on the Daniel scene, and so I say that to say what Daniels represents is principle. It represents principle in all of its form. And so what we are seeing is the consequence of principle, or a principle with a consequence, right? Like he knew, everybody knew the game and everything that's going to be played all last season. Nobody did any of this eyes closed. And even if for some reason we all missed that he didn't, Lester Freeman made it very, very clear what the consequences was. What was it, 11 years, 4 months, or 13 years?
13 years, 4 months.
13 years, 4 months. Yeah, okay, yeah. 13 years, 4 months. Every single day for doing what he believed was right, which was going opposite against his commander. There's nothing wrong with hierarchy. There's just nothing wrong with it. A boss is a boss for a reason. Now, that doesn't mean you just have to do what they're told. And so when I'm looking at that scene, I was looking at Daniels. Daniels knew when he last season he made that statement, and he knew he wasn't going to be promoted to a major. We already knew that, and he knew the repercussions of what he was doing. Both him and McNulty, they knew the repercussions. So again, can you stand up on principle even when you know there's a consequence? If you can't, then it's not a principle. Then it's not. Then you don't fully believe in it. You're just playing you're playing the equal game of the political game that Valchek is playing. If you're just doing good just to get points out of it, just to do good points or feel good points or whatever. So, anyways, that's a, like I said, the Wire very much thematic. So we're going to go a lot of different places in scenes because they're doing a lot of different They're doing a lot of different things. But what I saw right there was Daniels. This is the consequence of him stating and leaning in on his principles.
No question about it. We go to Bodie and Shamrock. They're being followed by what we come to find out would be two new Barksdale soldiers, Tank and Country, who have eyes on them. They follow them into this chop shop. Bodie picks up the car, drives it to the chop shop, and they go through the chop. The two mechanics completely just tear up the top of the car, and they're not able to find what we assumed to be, or what it was, turns out to be assumed to be missing drugs. Missing drugs. They're watching. You see Tank and Country, you see Country, the new Barksdale soldier, watching Bodie basically throw a tantrum, and Shamrock throw a tantrum against the two mechanics who, and again, they stripped this car bare. This is a chop shop, and this car has been stripped absolutely bare. So whatever was supposed to be in there was not in there, and of course they feared retribution from one Stringer Bell. What were your thoughts?
Set up for Roberto. We can't talk about those things without the Roberto reveal. I mean, it's set up for Roberto.
So you have Frank Sabaka going to Father Jerome. He donates a stained glass window, which gets put in the front of the church, and he also asks to see Senator in regards getting back to the canal in that situation. So Frank, you see in this scene that Frank has some political chops and has some, is making moves from that standpoint. With the stained glass window donation. What were your thoughts on that?
Now this is a lot. This is heavy, and this is the whole season essentially. I mean, this is the whole season. And so what Sabaka, this is again principle, right? Like that's why I went so hard in on the Daniel scene. Because Sabaka is the end, what he sees. I'm trying to stay within the frame of where we're at right now. It was about to go off a little bit. So this scene right here is Sabaka, for what we know, Union not doing well. That's fairly clear. Right. Sabaka's trying to play a game. He's trying to do something for support. Again, going back to that opening shot, that lets us know we're about to start getting more into other things than just day-to-day drug dealings. And so this is what he believes will give him a shot at doing what he needs to get done. But right here, we have all the principal elements of the entire season. We have the stained glass window, we have the money, and we have Frank trying to use his influence with a man of faith to get a political connection so that he can do X, Y, and Z. He will use a much later on in years. There will be a man named Walter White who will play this out in an entire 5-season series, but he will use an end goal. One who might say a good end goal to do some very, 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 very bad things. And this is the very, very beginning of it. All the principal elements of this entire scene, this entire season, are in this scene right here.
No question about it. So definitely a lot in this scene with the politics, and then with the fact that Sabaka is not a typical, not the typical union man. And, it gives you insight into how far he's.
I have to pause you on that, because then that goes against what we're talking about in terms of that. Sabaka's very average. He is very average. He's desperate because he sees his union about to die. Like, if we're going to go on, he sees his union about to die. And there's no hope on the future. And so that's why I'm saying this is very much a season about what other people do when they're desperate. The argument, season one, what happens in the ghetto is for generations, Black people have turned for other ways of earning money because they're not going to be let in that political door. They're not going to be let in that Fortune 500 country, Fortune 500 door, which Street Bell represents in a way, right? Like so they're going to turn to crime, quote unquote, in order to achieve the American dream, achieve what they can. Frank Sabaka cannot go to a senator. He can't just go up and say like I need to do X, Y, and Z. He's very much an average man. He's using the only connection he has, which is the priest, to get to the senator. Which I mean, it's all that the argument will be played out over the season. What are the right moves? What are the wrong moves? But I did want he's not extraordinary. He's not anything. He's president of a local in Baltimore that is dying.
Yeah, so no, it's union definitely
trying to save it. There's nothing special about Sabaka. That's very important. Do not make him special. There's nothing special about him. Okay, sorry.
So you have Kima Herc. Kima is in house. She's she's typing. She's in office. Herc immediately picks up on the fact that she doesn't seem happy with what she's doing. He before he even gets into that, he discusses how much respect he had for investigating the Barksdale organization in comparisons to dealing with some of the white drug dealers that he is dealing with now. He even jokes about needing there should be affirmative action for white drug dealers because it's not fair for them. And then he says, "Leave no white man behind." And then he calls Kima a pussy whip for having a desk job. Now, you've been very consistent with saying that there is always, when The Wire does comedy, there's always something serious in terms of there's underlining some subtext, some serious subtext when they do a comedy bit. What were your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, I mean, like this is one of those scenes where it can't be what it is because it's set. There's no deeper meaning behind this. I mean, like Kima's not happy. She's in a space she doesn't want to be in. Yeah, she's not happy. She's in a space that she didn't want to be in. She gives some very sounded by. I mean, like there is a overarching narrative on Herc, but if I were to use it now, it would be too soon. They're layering different things about Herc, but if I'm being honest, I didn't see it at this point in time. I would have been able to see it at this point in time, and so it would be too soon for me to start bringing that stuff in. This is more like the principal characters of the police department from the investigative team from last year, setting up where they are at the beginning of this season. McNulty's on the boat, Daniels is in the basement, Bunk is still Bunk, and Kima's inside. So it's very much setting the table.
You have Bunk and McNulty at the bar. Again, Bunk keeps bugging McNulty about Omar, and again, McNulty again is just basically brushing him off, barely even talking about Omar. Anything you want to add to this scene? Seems like it was cut and dry.
Cut dry. Agreed.
Bodie, Shamrock, Stringer. So Bodie and Shamrock brought back the two mechanics. Shamrock was on the phone with Stringer. Now they didn't show that, but they showed that showed the conversation with him and Bodie. So they're in the car on the way back to Baltimore, and Bodie is kind of like the kid who's about to get in trouble, who's afraid of what his parents are going to say. He kept
a little bit more significant than that.
kept
Okay.
asking.
That's his murdering boss. But
Yeah,
okay.
yeah,
Yeah.
no, yeah, no. It definitely, he
Yeah.
definitely had he
More than
definitely had reason. Yeah, he definitely had reason to be even more nervous than a kid getting it.
I mean, but no, you're in a kid. Of course, your parents aren't going to kill you, but in your kid mind, you're like, oh God, they're going to kill. They're going to, yeah.
So he says, what do you say, how you say it. And then, Shamrock basically has nothing. He's like, just told him, just come home, bring everybody. I mean, when he brought everybody, brought him, Bodie, and like I said, the two mechanics back to Baltimore. So they come in. Stringer checks with his guys to see if everything's on point about the mileage and everything, and talks to everybody to kind of get confirmation, so that so Bodie was clean on that. He kind of grilled Shamrock about going over going over the situation multiple times, and then he gets to Bodie, kind of teases Bodie about the mileage being off by a quarter of a mile or 3/4 of a mile. I thought he was just fucking with him from that standpoint. And then he lets Bodie know that they basically lets him know that we have people's watching you, and then we of course we would come to find again. We'll get to the Avon Stringer scene, but Bodie asked where is that, and which lets us know that there were some drugs that were supposed to be there and ended up not being there. Stringer in full boss mode. Got the sweater, got the cup of tea. Stringer is feeling himself in this scene. He's feeling him. He's feeling that boss vibe. He's got that whole boss swagger in full effect in this scene. You can tell he loves being in charge just by how he carried himself in this particular scene. What were your thoughts?
Yeah, I think like just a minor note. So the 3/10 of a mile and the kicking the tire, those go together because remember there was a detour that they had to take. So he was off by 3/10 of a
Yes.
mile.
Yeah. He was.
Messing with him.
No, he was. You're right. You're right.
Like, and so I think this tells us a couple different things about the leader that Stringer's going to be. Very detailed oriented, very like big brother watching over everybody at all times. And very calculating. I mean, I think we this is setting that up. This is setting that up. That Stringer is not going to be the boss that Avon was. They have very different styles, and this is starting to show out his style. The other scenes were pure setup, but I think I agree with you 100%. This is also showing the type of drug deal gang, whatever you want to say Stringer is in terms of the illegal part of it. This is showing what his style looks like versus what Avon's style looked like.
Yeah. So we get to Ziggy, Nick, and the Portman at the bar. They're at the bar getting fucked up.
This is where you find out who Ziggy is. This is it.
Yeah.
That's why. At first scene, this one, yes.
So you have the separation of the old heads with the young and versus the younger crew. The old heads are telling their war stories, and they're being taunted by the Ziggies of the world, Johnny 50s. Johnny 50 is a dude with the beard, and Nick Sabaka. Those are the young cats. So they're going back and forth for a couple minutes, and then Ziggy jumps in, and immediately they know that Ziggy is about to pull out his dick. Like you heard the bartender say, "Don't you pull out your dick in here." And then you heard a couple of the old heads basically say, "Oh, watch him! He's gonna pull out his dick." So this is something that has happened before. Clearly, it's something. It's not the first time he's done this. He goes into his spiel, and then he pulls out his dick, and then they go, continue to dance the night away and party the night away and drink the night away. What are your thoughts?
I mean, like, this sets up Ziggy as being a clown. The word I want you to think about with Ziggy. The reason why I like the Ziggy character so much is it's such wanting self-destructive behavior, right? So that's the word that I want you to attach with Ziggy for the entire season is self-destructive, right? And it's like they can only go so far. Like the reason why I was thinking about this, I'm not amused by Bubbles' stuff at all. It's very sad. And it's meant to be very sad because Andre Royal plays it like that. He wants to give you the human element of self-destructive behavior. Same thing with McNulty. McNulty's a main character, so they can only go so far with it until the end. And so, but with Ziggy character, they can really play with the notion of what does self-destructive look like. The two things to remember about Ziggy is father's son, Sabaka's son. And so what does that mean? Right? Like, and the lack of consequences that go, that's what that other scene was kind of like introducing us to. Just like you said, he's done this multiple times. Where are the consequences for it? Everybody keeps going, oh, that's Ziggy. Oh, that's Ziggy. So what does self-destructive behavior? Ziggy equals self-destructive. That's the only thing to think about. And they could really, really, the reason why I like it is because they could really, really run with it with Ziggy. Whereas with Bubs, Andre Royal makes it impossible to run with it in that way because he shows such a human side. And with Nolte, they can't run with it because he's the main character of the show. He's one of the main characters of the ensemble show. So he needs to be around for a lot of years.
So you have McNulty fishing out a dead body. Now, seeming like now McNulty was able to determine, then you had his partner asking questions of, in terms of not asking questions, but talking about, assuming that she was a jumper. But again, I think this was a setup for the further down the road, not in this episode. So, anything you want to add to that?
Nope, found the body. We'll see how deep that is by the very end.
Nick Sabaka living at home. So Nick Sabaka lives not only with his parents. He's in his parents' basement. His mom wakes him up by kicking the floor, stomping the floor. He's hungover. She chides him for being late for a ship. He lets her know that, the ship, I'm not late for it. I got until, I think he said he got until 12 o'clock or something. It's not going out to 12 o'clock. His mom, wants him to get Ziggy out of there because Ziggy's drunk and on the couch as well. But I guess, going back to our point of, when you were talking about season 1 versus season 2, this scene shows you, Nick has, he has no money. He has no money. He's talking about a grown man living at home, a working man living at home with his parents in his parents' basement. So, that, to your point about desperate people doing desperate things, that will have you doing desperate things if you're living at home in your parents' basement. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, this is one of those scenes. It very much is played for comedy, and this is one of those scenes that is very dead serious. Or there's a lot under it. Just like you said, it's to you open up when you were talking about with Daniels, right? Like Daniels being stuck in the basement below and everything like that, and what that actually does to you psychologically. Daniels would rather, what'd you say? You'd rather not have a job almost than to be below your station.
Mm-hmm.
He has a job. He does have a job. He has a job that has been in his families for generations. Also, the generational aspect. Think about the Barksdales. Come on, let's start making some connections here, people. D'Angelo. Anyways, so for this has been something that's been proud for his family for generations. This is not just you are. I don't even know what would be a less proud job. This is something of pride. That's what that whole scene in the bar was about. Was like this is about pride. Like people like this is a family institution, this thing that they do. And there's nothing for him. Not only does he not have money, he has no hope of getting money. So that's the very definition of desperate. Because this thing that's been in his family for years, this thing that they all know well and do well, is now dying and eradicating and going away forever. What do? How do you pivot when you've done this for generations? So.
Yeah, and this is all you know, and this is all you know how to do.
Yeah, that generations. Like it's not just all I know how to do, Robert Sapp. It's all my family's been taught to do.
Right. Yeah.
It's what we do. It's what we know. Make the connection back to
Awesome. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah,
that's why season 2 is so good, people.
So yeah, we meet. No, we did not so much. We meet. We've seen him already. You have Father Jerome and Valchek. Valchek finds out that he basically gets outbidded by Sabaka for the window.
Pause right there.
Outbidded. He breaks it up.
I just have to say for a second. The preacher says, Valchek, we can never see you on Sunday, but you come in on a random Tuesday. Ain't no outbid. Valchek just showed up and said, I want that window.
Right, yes. So he should, yes. He
wants. Look at what I got for you. Like, what?
He wants his window. Yeah, so Valchek comes in, wants his window placed in the front. Of course, we already know that Sabaka's window is already there. And then you have Valchek already, his wheels are spinning because he's wondering how much, he's wondering that how could Sabaka come up with this amount of money when he's to what he said, there's not even 100 checkers, barely 100 checkers left in the union. So this is about, so Valchek already has they don't go into it immediately in this episode, but these are not friends, to be honest, to say the least here. But again, it's about Valchek, it's about pride. Getting back to what you're talking about, pride. Valchek's pride is hurt when he realizes that Frank Sabaka has his window in front instead of Valchek's. Valchek has to put his window upstairs, where it can't be seen by as many people, of course. When you want your window in the front, because all the worshipers are going to be in the main. That's the main part of the church. So Valchek's wheels are spinning in regards to how Frank Sabaka could afford that window and what have you. What are you going to add on to your original thoughts?
I mean, like I definitely have a lot to say. The Valchek character is one of the most underrated characters on this show.
Oh, he's a great actor. Great.
He plays a significant part in the entire series. Like this not just one and done. Like he plays a significant part in the entire series. So I say that to say I loved your point about this being like the motive is not. This one's not complicated. Valchek's a horrible person.
Yes, he's a
person. And you're absolutely right. It's about pride. So I love that simple motive is going to bring out so much that's going to happen this season. But that's a great reminder. What you said was like, this is just somebody whose pride is hurt. Now watch what happens because this one person's pride is hurt. So that's on a very micro level. On a very macro level, the more power you have and the more influence you have, those little tiny things that, like, for an average person like me, my pride is hurt. What do? I just go home and eat food. Like Valchek can get a lot of stuff. I won't go into it right now because we're not there yet. We'll save it for then right there. But you can draw, I don't really bring a whole bunch of real world stuff into it, but think about who's in the Oval Office right now. When whatever crazy thing happens with that one, then so much else happens after that. So it's like this very simple little thing. His vanity has been challenged in all that he can bring because of us. So that's one part of it. And then the second part of it is just like I'll leave it there.
Yeah. No, I mean
Yeah, yeah.
you
Plenty of
described.
episodes left. Plenty of episodes left.
Yeah, it's a lot of episodes.
Yeah.
Plenty of episodes
We're
left.
excited to talk about season 2. So yeah,
Um,
plenty of episodes.
McNulty and Cole. So McNulty goes back to the Western District, and they're discussing the body that came up. And um, McNulty basically calls out Cole for missing a number of just some key evidence that will lead to some further happenings later in this episode. Cole misses a number of things. McNulty brings up the broken legs and the fingers and a couple of key details that Cole misses, and it gave you insight on why Cole is just not a good cop or average mediocre cop. So that's what I kind of took out of that. And of course, McNulty is fucking with his old command, and we'll see how he continues to do that over the course of the course of this episode as well. What were your thoughts?
Lots of thoughts, lots and lots of thoughts on this one. And I'm gonna combine it with what I was thinking about until when you brought McNulty up. Then I was like, oh yeah, I do remember what I was going to say with Valchek, and it combines with McNulty. The Wire is very much a show about systems, not necessarily individual people. Think about how all of these cases, what I would challenge people to do is think about how all these cases are happening, right? This is not neither in both circumstances, season 1 and season 2, this is not a noble exercise. This is not, we see something wrong, something unjust, and we're going to do something to fix it. McNulty gets involved for the exact same reason Valchek is upset. Yeah. Something he's personally offended by. This has nothing to do with the criminal, with the actual things that are going on. That's what pissed me off last season, or that's what I wasn't pissed off by it. Of course, it's great. That's what got me elevated last season. That's what will get me elevated this season. That's what they're trying to say. This is not by default. This is not them forgetting this and only giving their characters weak motives. That's the point of this. The point is that these huge systems are corrupt, and individual people play their part in it. And some will do good, and some will be Valchek and McNulty and just be petty as all hell. And so that's what McNulty's right now. McNulty's getting his mind going because he's going to go into full petty mode very, very shortly. Now, that doesn't mean good things can't come out of people being very, very narcissistic and very vain and very individualistic and very self-serving. Yes, good things can happen, but let's not paint it as a good thing. Let's not paint it as this person is doing it for the right reasons.
Right.
So you got very juxtaposed. Yeah. Let me stop right there.
Yeah, because at this point he's not.
No. At no point is he. No point. 0 point is he ever.
You have Avon and Stringer meeting in jail. They discuss Roberto and the missing drugs.
Being good at your job does not mean you're a good person.
No, it does not.
That's why I keep saying about McNulty.
No, it does not. So Avon finds out through Stringer that it's not on them as far as the drugs. They sent the payment to Roberto, and for whatever reason, Roberto has chosen not to give them the drugs. We'll find out about that later. Basically, you have he tells he tells Stringer that he needs to go see Roberto. Tells him to be firm. Saying because they have our money, and keep in mind that they don't have right now. They are running the pit, not the pit, but they're holding on to the towers by the skin of their teeth. We talked about in getting back to that quote, not the quote, getting back to that definition ebb tide, a period or state of decline. Right now, the Barksdale organization is at a state of decline right now. And again, Roberto did not give them their drugs, and he has their money. So we will see. We'll talk about in more in detail why that was. What were your thoughts on the conversation with Avon?
Really quickly, I would argue there is no Barksdale organization at this point. When Avon went to prison, that was the end of the Barksdale organization. That would just be my response to that really quickly. This scene is everything. This scene is everything, like everything. If Homeboy, what was it? Man, you move on in the season. I move on in the season. Really, what was my man who got his eye pulled out and tortured it? What was his name? Brandon. Yeah, Brandon. Yes. Okay. So if Brandon was the original sin of the Barksdale, Avon not getting that 20 years and not getting the bigger sentence is the next one. Because the lawyer says it right there.
Oh, hold on. That's not.
Oh,
wait for that.
Okay,
This is the Stringer. This is the Stringer and Avon talking. This is not.
All right, set up for Roberto. Sorry.
Right. Yeah. So
I got excited.
We move on to Nikki and Johnny.
Yeah. Oh wait, we can say there is no Barksdale organization at this point.
Yes, you should. Yeah. There's no.
There is none. There is none. Avon's behind bars. Only his name is ringing out. We've already made the assessment that Stringer is looking to take over. It's Barksdale by name, yeah. But also, I mean, yeah, think about it. Think about what makes an organization. What is it that they have that is anything that makes an organization?
Well, they don't have anything right now. They don't have the muscle. They don't have the product.
There you go.
Right now, they have nothing.
Even when they do get this, how does Stringer get it? I'm just talking to like me and you, like we're not giving away anything, but that's what I'm saying. I would argue the Barksdale organization ended episode 12, Barksdale in jail.
Yeah, I mean,
we'll come back to that.
We'll come back. Yeah, we go back to that.
We got
You can put a bookmark that. Yeah, put a bookmark that point. Nikki, Johnny 50, and Ziggy come up. You have Nikki and Johnny discussing. Again, Johnny 50 is a guy with the full beard. They discussing the lack of work. They're discussing the lack of work, and then Ziggy comes up, and then then Ziggy comes up and doesn't have a conversation with him, but he's coming up to get a ride from Nick a ride. Remember, because Nick's car back in the scene when Nick's car broke down on top of living in his parents' basement. He has a piece of shit car as well that broke down, so he needed Ziggy to give him a ride to work and give him the ride to work, and ended up giving him a ride to the Greeks. So just quick, Nick and Johnny just discussing the lack of work, which was again something that we talked about over the course of this episode, and even with the opening scene in terms of the unions. The Portman, the unions are basically dead. Are dead. Did you want to add anything?
Nope. They're just driving that point home, setting the table.
Nick, Ziggy, Spiros, and the Greek. So Nicky does not, keep this in mind, Nicky did not want to take, of course he doesn't want to take Ziggy, but he kind of has no choice. He doesn't have any car. He doesn't have a car. Ziggy drives him to the Greeks. They have a little restaurant, or a little not restaurant, a little deli type setup, quiet and real quiet and low key, which we'll come to find out is reflective of their personalities and how they do business. He warns Ziggy even beforehand, don't say anything, let me do all the talking and what have you. But of course, Ziggy can't help himself. He gets in there, cracking jokes, running his mouth. Nikki checks him, tells him basically to shut the fuck up, and he let him go a lot. He let him go a lot longer than I would have let him go. In terms of he kept talking. He gave him some rope, gave him some a cousin's rope before he told him to shut the fuck up. And then Ziggy goes by the Greek, and the Greek immediately wants no part, like even sitting next to him. The Greek moves his keys and moves his newspaper, and basically fuck you to Ziggy without saying anything. And you have Nikki and Spiros talking business along with and Sergey was at the table as well. And you could tell you could tell within the scene is that Nikki is respected by Spiros. That you can kind of tell that early in terms of them when they were discussing business. What were your thoughts?
Yeah, you're going a little bit further in there, homie. The second thing, there's no way you could tell all that in that scene. The second thing is, I mean, like the juxtaposition is there, right? Like the juxtaposition is Nikki's an idiot. Nick is
level-headed.
The one that they talk, the one that they go through, the communication. I was being harsh and a little facetious. You're absolutely right. Nick is the one that Frank sends to go through with the Greeks. The Greeks don't even know that Frank has a son. So
that lets you know. Yeah.
That by definition tells you exactly how they see each one. Like I said, what's my friend? Now I'm on the Nikki thing.
Ziggy?
Yeah, Ziggy. Ziggy is insignificant to them. He means nothing to them. He means nothing to them. They don't even recognize him as anything. And so this again, Ziggy self-destructive. That's all you just keep seeing. Ziggy self-destructive. All of these moments will mean something, but much later on. So we cannot go into them right now.
No. Frank and Beatty, you have, we meet Beatty Russell. She's a port police. She jokes with Frank and basically asks about stealing, basically saying, well, what are you guys going to steal today? Then he jokes and said, I forgot what he said, but they basically go back and forth jokingly. And then you see Frank, talking conversate with Nick for a bit. What were your initial thoughts about Beatty Russell?
Yeah, it's not about Beatty. I mean, like she'll be important, but I did notice something this time with Nick and Frank. Just it's wild, right? Like Frank Sabaka's his uncle. He's supposed to be protecting him. Mm-hmm. And he's constantly putting him on the front line and constantly having him in there. That will tie into what's said at the very end of the season as well. But I've just been paying attention, like both of the times, their initial interaction with each other, the interaction now with each other is just like, it's like, man, that's your uncle. He's supposed to be looking out for you. And he got you 10 toes deep in the dirt.
Yeah.
So again, like I said, Breaking Bad had a whole bunch of different, but I was saying that just about, I hadn't even put those two together because I was saying that. No, yeah, Sabaka. Yeah, Sabaka. Yeah, just another thing. It's just like, you're saying you're doing X, Y, and Z, but what are you sacrificing in doing that? And I noticed just in those interactions with him and Nick, I'm just like, man, that's your uncle. He's supposed to be looking out for you.
Yeah.
Yeah, Amy Ryan.
Well, clear. I mean, we even up to this point, we only went through barely through one episode. It's clear that the relationship is stronger between Frank and Nick versus Frank.
Yeah, it's not even forget about strong. Like that, he's supposed to be looking out for him.
Yes.
Think about how this ends up, right? Like he's supposed to be looking out for him. Is that what he's doing? What he's doing right now is that looking out for Nick?
No. So I'm gonna get back to no. It's completely. He's dead wrong. We know this. But
I would argue that Sabaka's probably looking out for his son by not involving him in any of this.
I don't think he's in.
Yeah. Think about it. Yeah.
Yeah. You can make, yes, you can definitely make that case. But I want to, yes, yeah, absolutely. And plus, he knows.
I agree. Like, we're in agreement. Sabaka, of course, trusts Nick. Of course, he trusts him.
No, but he doesn't want. No, to your point, he doesn't want.
And of course, he knows his son is an F up.
He's protecting his son from himself.
But exactly. But there have been many of sons throughout history who have been F-ups and who have gone on to take their father, or their father have pushed them through. Yeah. And I think I can glean that out a little bit more because I know how this season ends. I know how the season ends as well. But that's why I said, just in this scene, I'm just paying attention to the interactions between Nick Sabaka and Frank Sabaka, and how Frank is supposed to be his uncle who cares about him.
Yeah, but I think he does care about him, but I think that he, getting back to some conversations that we've said throughout the course of these first 14 episodes, Frank is choosing institution over individual.
Is that caring over your family?
It's not the right type of caring. No, it's not. It's yes.
I do that to my niece.
No, it's not.
Like that's your blood.
Yeah. No, it's fucked up. No, it is fucked up.
Like, and that's why I say, like, literally, like when I saw that first interaction between him and Nick, and like it was like Nick came over to him and was just like, "Hey, I don't have, not work, like regular talk." And then Frank's like, "Hey, come here. Go see the Greek."
Yeah.
Also talking about at the very end when Horseface comes to him, but we'll get there.
Yeah, we'll get there. You have
it's different between trust and then like me picking up my niece and being like, "Yo, I need that heron. Go get it for me." Like, the person I trust, go get that heron. Like, no, that's not caring for somebody.
No, you're right. No, that's not caring. Frank, no, we already got that. McNulty, Cole, and Landsman. So McNulty goes to the office. He fucks with Cole about the missing evidence. And then he has Landsman. Landsman fucks with him about being on the boat. McNulty says, "I'm not paying you that $10 because you're the one that told Ross that I didn't want to be there." And Landsman, basically, and Landsman's full of shit on this. Landsman says, "Well, I didn't know that he was that pissed off at you," which is complete bullshit. Like, come on, you knew what time it was when you told Ross where he didn't want to be at, where McNulty didn't want to be. Not to take any heat off McNulty because he deserves to be there. And Landsman says it's all about self-preservation. He says, "It's all about self-preservation, Jimmy, something you never learned." So what were your thoughts on that scene?
Yeah, I mean, that's pretty much as is. McNulty is not going to give him that $10. Landsman is out $10.
So you have Frank and Sergey. They dump the can, and Sergey, Frank dumps the can for the Greeks to pick up, and Sergey does not pick up the can. What were your thoughts on Sergey not picking up the can?
That's pretty self-explanatory.
Oh, we'll get to it. We'll get to it. All right, the scene that you've been waiting for, Stringer and Roberto. So, Roberto's lawyer, first of all, Stringer expected to see Roberto, and instead he got Roberto's lawyer. Roberto's lawyer basically says
he expected Roberto to also be there.
No, he wanted, yes, Roberto to be there as well, yes.
That's the whole point of the initial, and as you can tell, I just watched the episode today, so I have it all fresh in my mind. Because he says, the first thing Roberto's lawyer says when he's like, and so now that you're my client, so he put Stringer under attorney-client privilege so that they could talk. They could for real talk. And I also wanted to say, you thought Levy was come on now, Roberto, the Colombian. Like, I'm assuming. I'm trying to think at that time who. I'm assuming it's Colombian because I think that's who was popping in 2005. But yeah. That
no, this dude, this dude.
That's next level. He's literally like his consigliere.
No, there's no question. So he basically says that they're concerned about about Avon getting a lighter sentence versus and also Roberto is feeling the heat. Well, not feeling the heat. Roberto's locked up and he had dealings with he got found out.
Investigated by the DEA.
He got investigated by the DEA. He's locked up. So right now, Roberto.
He's fled the country. He's not locked up. He's just gone. He disappeared.
So he's Yes, he's under fire from the DEA. So he's going to, like you said, he's going to lay low.
Going underground.
He does not want any part of the Barksdale organization because he realizes they think that they're radioactive, and also the fact that, getting back to your point earlier, the 20 years versus the 7 years. So if Avon gets 20 years, then this is a totally different conversation versus the 7 years he got, considering that Avon's a kingpin and the namesake of the other organization.
I have a direct quote from the lawyer.
Oh no, he thought that the sentence was light. Now, before you go, Stringer, and this was to me one of the key parts of the scene as well. Stringer rebuffs that and basically says, "I sent you all the documents from the case." So that's how. So
he said none of the people rolled, none of the everything had. Here, I'll break this down because, like you said, I've been obsessing over this scene. So Roberto's lawyer says, he goes, seeing the scope and scale of the Barksdale organization, 7 years seems like a lenient sentence.
Mm-hmm.
And Stringer he retorts, it sounds like you are saying, you're blaming us, and Stringer says, it sounds like you're blaming us. Roberto knows all of our people, none of our people rolled, none of them even came close or anything like that. I sent you the documents to show you that, the courtroom documents. So he sent him all the physical evidence. That's what Stringer's saying. I sent you all the physical evidence to prove it. And the lawyer saying, yeah, now I'm paraphrasing. The lawyer saying, yeah, you did, but that sentence is still way too light. It's still way too light. Yeah, we hear that, but he said something like, you understand how we can be nervous and we can't even take the risk that Barksdale's cooperating. We can't even take that risk. However, he says, however minor it is.
Yes.
Yeah. So anyways, this is like I said, as I jumped the shark earlier, got excited. This is the whole show. This is everything. This is everything. In this season, right? Like this will lead not only to what happens in this season, but what happens in next season as well. This will lead to what happens in next season, but this will be the drumbeat of this season. Because the whole point, as we know now, the reason why there was nothing in that car is because Roberto has pulled all product and giving distribution of product. As a matter of fact, they're sending the money back to them.
Right. The money was on its way back.
Yeah. So what that says is there's no product coming at all. Y'all are done. Zero. And so that sets off things in motion. Because of course you can't be a drug kingpin without drugs. You need drugs. So that's going to set everything in motion for what needs to happen in order to make that happen. And so that's one. Like I said, if Brandon is the original sin of the Barksdale organization, which it absolutely is, then the second sin is how Avon played him going to jail, not going to jail, all that. By him not having more years on it, that signaled to Roberto that Avon could be cooperating. And then that's what then withdrew the entire connect from New York, which New York is, I'm assuming it's Colombian. If it's 2005, it has to be Colombian. To Colombia. And once that is gone, then what is left of the Barksdale organization, I think that's that's how I'll frame it in my mind. What is left of the Barksdale organization becomes very, 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 very desperate. And by what's left, I mean Stringer. Because everybody else, as we know at the end, Stringer's on top. No, he's not. But he will have to make moves to make things happen. But again, like it's this thing, right? Like it's like what you do in the moment feels right, but sets up your ultimate downfall. And that happens with a lot of different people. And that's, again, to bring it back to my man Ziggy, he exemplifies that. He's our North Star of self-destructive behavior in this season, because he's relentless with his. Everybody else masked theirs. Bubbles mask his. Now I'm getting more overarching series. Bubbles mask his with all the different, with working with the cops and with his, his wise thoughts on things. McNulty masked his with his dedication to his job and women and blah blah da da da. Stringer masked his. Avon masked his with machismo and being this, and Stringer Collier and da da da. They masked their self-destructive behavior, but all of these players sealed their fates with their actions that they did. They sealed their ultimate downfalls, and you can pinpoint it at different moments. The Barksdale organization, Barksdale Stringer, they have a few moments. That was one of them. In order for Avon not to be in for 20 years, for a longer sentence, they sealed their fate.
Yeah, it was. And again, you don't, by any stretch of imagination, blame Roberto for making this move, because we
don't know who is Roberto. Nobody cares.
No, I mean, you don't know, but you don't.
Of course, they're criminals. They can't trust each other.
They can't. Yeah, no. And again, so we talked about it. We discussed this last week. 7 years for a kingpin is, that was a light sentence. 7 years. He only got versus D'Angelo. Versus D'Angelo's 20. McNulty realizes that the body was dropped in Baltimore City. He does extensive research with the coordinates and stuff like that. This is McNulty in full petty mode. McNulty's doing his own research with the coordinates and what have you, and does realize it, that the body was dropped in Baltimore City. Originally they tried to say that they put it on a county. Of course, we know that it being with the city means that it's going to be dropped on Rawls and Landsman. And McNulty faxes this information to the Baltimore County Police. Anything you want to add to that?
No.
Kima and Cheryl. Kima comes home. Cheryl, of course, is happy to see her in one piece. And you have Kima, discuss, Kima complaining about the typing and what have you, talking about her paper cuts. We know she's not happy from the beginning of the episode. And they are, the key part of this is they end up discussing about not adoption, but having a baby. So Cheryl has all this information, all these books, how much it's going to cost, and that's something you might want to put a bookmark next to, or in terms of a major setup in regards to their relationship.
Yeah, she's not happy, and we all know what happens when people aren't happy in relationships.
Yeah. Rawls and Landsman. Rawls realizes that McNulty sent the information, and now the body has been put on them, Baltimore City, and Rawls, is semi-amused that the fact that that it was McNulty that did this, and says he somewhat jokingly, but he's pissed off, gives McNulty credit for pulling this off. Thought that kind of explained itself. You have Bodhi now in the towers. Bodhi, of course, basically worships the ground Stringer walks on. Now they're low in the towers in terms of the drugs, and Bodhi tells us, first of all, he gives a speech to one of the soldiers saying, you always want to look the whale on motherfuckers instead of, thinking things through. Kind of giving D'Angelo some credit from, that's kind of a callback to D'Angelo in the first season about using alternative means other than violence. You see Bodhi in a position of leadership, and you basically see Bodhi says, hey, if Stringer wants us down, then that's because we're down because Stringer wants us down. He says Stringer's on top of all this. So, I think it lets you in on some insight on their relationship, how strong their relationship is. It also lets you in, it also gives you a sense of the pecking order. Like Bodhi has no idea of the big picture of the trouble that they're in. He's just doing what he's told. He's putting all trust in Stringer. So from that standpoint, he's only going that far as he's moved up the ranks, but not that far up the ranks to know how much trouble the Barksdale organization is in. What were your thoughts on the Bodhi's new promotion?
Yeah. Bodhi's a soldier. I mean, like you said, everybody had to move up because so many people are gone. So everybody had to move up. I think the more interesting question for me is like thinking about last season and just like watching Bodhi, like Stringer treated him like dirt initially, like I don't even see you, and now Bodhi's like there, but like so I'm there. When I watch these next two seasons, I'm going to be paying real close attention to the Bodhi Stringer relationship, not because there's anything big that I'll be able to grab from it, but I've never viewed it from the point of Bodhi looks up to Stringer. Like I almost think of him like as a puppy dog right now. Like literally, like Stringer would come around and Bodhi's eyes would light up in season 1. And like now he's like Stringer is in control of everything. So it's all Bodhi's a soldier, so of course he doesn't have information that Stringer has, but he also views Stringer through rose-colored glasses. That's what I'm trying to get at. Like Stringer can do no wrong in his mind. I don't know how that plays out because I've never viewed it that way, but I'll be really interested to see how that dynamic plays itself out. Yeah, anyways, but that's just kind of like has been my takeaway these 13 episodes that we've been rewatching. Right? I was like, I never noticed how much Bodhi was like Stringer's lapdog the entire time. I never, ever noticed that. So that's it.
Yeah. So now we go into B.D. Russell discovering the dead girls in the can. Remember, this is the can that the Greeks chose not to pick up. So when the Greeks didn't pick up this can, Sabaka immediately, because remember, he was talking to Horseface saying that the reason why he was getting upset about them taking the can because it was I think it would have been a customs violation for that can to be out there. It was unmarked. It was something like where it was unmarked or something. So after Sergei drives away and doesn't pick up the can, you had the Greeks put the can back, stash the can in a what they thought was a safe place, but Beatty finds that can, and she discovers that they have a number of dead girls in that can. So you think that the Greeks, that not the Greeks, but you think that they already knew the girls were in that can. That's what you were trying to say earlier.
Say that again. Do the Greeks already know the girls in the can?
Did Sergey and them already know that those dead girls are in the can?
Yes.
Okay. It makes perfect, yeah.
The call that he got. I mean, like, yes, without giving away too much. All things will be made very, very clear over the season, but you can see phone, Sergey's talking to somebody, then he gets into the car and goes away. We know the people who he's communicating with about this were at that table. So it's either Nick Sabaka, Frank Sabaka, or the Greek, who they're identifying as the Greek at that time. We know Frank Sabaka doesn't know it. He calls Nick and says, Nick, why is this truck still here? Nick's surprised. He's like, Nick, again, this is the uncle, like, what? Dirty uncle move. Like, Nick, get on that, call them and figure out what's going on. So by process of elimination, without knowing this whole story, the only person you could be talking to on that phone is the Greek.
And that is how you see the police cars come up there. Then you see they let Frank Sabaka know that, Horseface and them let them know something is wrong. And then then Ziggy, not Ziggy, but you have Nikki saying that there are some dead girls in there, and that's how the episode wraps up with them looking into the can. Yeah, overall, I think that I was fine with this episode. I understand why it was ranked last. I'm not saying it wasn't a bad episode by any stretch of imagination. It when you, to your point, it's kind of like when you move. You know what I'm saying? You move to another place, apartment, house, whatever.
If I identify episodes worse than this episode, I will. There are plenty of episodes worse.
Yeah, this is not no. Yeah, I will say that this is definitely not the worst episode. This is not the worst episode.
The Wire is fantastic. So what are we even saying? The worst episode of The Wire. Like, what does that even mean?
Yeah, yeah.
So
I feel like
this is not the worst episode.
I feel like they had to have an episode like this to where if they were going in this direction where they had to basically almost
there's no other way to do this. It's the first episode of season 2 and they're introducing an entire concept.
They'll
take the time to do it. That's why this Wire is so good, because they will take the time to do the stuff that's necessary in order to make a good season.
Yes, no, that's what I'm saying. They're looking ahead. They're looking at the overall product. They're not just looking for immediate results. They're looking at the overall theme of the season as a whole. So they're getting back to season 1 with the chess analogy. They're playing chess with this episode, and there's a lot of setup, and we get introduced to a whole nother family, a whole nother set of actors. We had they had to sacrifice they had to sacrifice some characters. We talked about barely seeing Daniels and Kima and seeing some of the major characters. Well, this episode there was no Omar, no Bubbles, no Perlman, no Burrell, no who else? No Carver. So there were a number of the regulars who were D'Angelo. So there were a number of the regulars that were missing from this episode, and to your point, they had to do it like this. They had to set up this episode and run this episode the way they did. So overall, again, I had zero problem with this episode, and you see the getting back to the point of ebb tide, the definition of ebb tide. You see the state of decline throughout with the characters and throughout the not institution, but the shoremen and the whole that idea of the shipyards and the ships and what have you. Sardine Award and MVP. I had for the Sardine Award for the best performance. I had Valchek. For the best performance. My MVP, and this was a tough one to be honest with you, but I had to go with McNulty for MVP.
Go ahead, explain that.
Well, yeah. So I reluctantly chose McNulty because he did find the girl. He's not found the girls, but he did.
The girl was floating in the water, Cyril.
The girl was thrown in the water, but he did identify that the girl body was over the city in terms of the county.
That's fair.
And which will, I guess I'm looking ahead to what that will do for further for the overall season. But it was very hard to find an MVP in this episode. I'll be honest with you. It was very hard because I almost chose. I mean, I was very hard pressed to find an MVP. To be honest with you.
MVP is I'm sorry, I got some popcorn stuck in my throat. MVP is because I'm thinking of them both. Chardine Stamp Valchek. MVP is. Did you say Valchek for Chardine?
Yes.
No, you said sorry. MVP is Valchek. My MVP is Valchek, and then the Chardine is Sabaka. That's what I was trying to do.
Okay. I mean, that's fair. Which Sabaka? Frank or which
Frank.
one? Frank. Okay. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. I could definitely. Yeah. I have no problem with that. His performance was strong, and his acting performance was strong throughout the course of the season. He was tremendous in this season. Yeah, I just saw Valchek's performance, man. Valchek is a guy, and you mentioned it. That character, that is definitely one of the top 5 underrated characters in the history of the show.
I'm gonna switch that around. Sorry, Valchek should be Chardine.
Right, and Sabaka MVP.
It's MVP.
Why was Sabaka MVP?
I mean, Sabaka carried a lot of the heavy weight of this episode. Like what I will say is, if whoever wrote that article, if their high measure or like the thing that they value most was always like super strong acting performances, this episode didn't have a lot of them because, like I said, they were setting the table for different things. So this wasn't about carrying like the emotional heft of a scene or anything like that, because the stakes haven't been set at all yet. So if that was that person's indicator, then I get it. Then you're not going to find dynamic performances in this episode because that's not what this episode is meant to do. But the heavy lifting, Frank carried the heavy lifting. He introduced the themes of what is going on and what will be going on throughout the season, and then he also like his intro into the universe and how everything will begin to orbit around him is centered on this performance here in this episode, right? And so like that scene where him and the father, or he comes in, kneels with the father, talks with him about the thing, like this is why, blah, blah, blah. And then father asks him, hey, Sabaka, when's the last time you've been in? And he just kind of gives him that look and like not. And they're back and forth. So you have that back and forth with him and the father. You have him and Nick. And like I said, the way he approached that in the intro scene between them was very fascinating to me. Him and Zig, Sabaka did the heavy lifting in this episode for a show. If even though I argued last season, it became a true ensemble show by the end of the season, and I still 100% support that statement. But I could see how you would come into this season and be like, this is McNulty's show, or this is Idris Elba's show, or Wood Harris's show. Like they get the most camera time to come in and be able to dominate as he did MVP without those supporting characters.
Yeah, no problem with that. One last question. Did you getting back to Stringer? Did any part of you feel like Stringer sabotaged that drug thing in terms of? Okay, all
right. The big part of it is, hey, just all you have to do is that's giving Stringer too much credit. The Colombians have way more power than any Barksdale anything ever in life. That's not even a conversation. And the way is because they're getting the product from them. So the case that this season will make as well is who's in control of the product and who's actually bringing the product here. Yeah, we got the drug dealers slinging it on the corners, but who's bringing a massive amount inside? That's not the Barksdales. That's not even close to the Bark. They can't even get stuff that's not stepped on all over at this point in time. So no, Stringer has no play and no pull with Roberto at all, like not even a little bit. But the lawyer lays it out really clearly in that scene. That's why that scene is everything. He lays it all out and very, very clearly and very confidently to Stringer why this is happening. And even if you want to even break it down, like how you know is Avon in that conversation with Stringer. Avon is like, play it like he's not go. He doesn't say like go in there, you know, wild out, go get the goons and rough Roberto up and get our stuff. He's like, play it cool, but play it firm. Like,
yeah, no. Avon knows. Avon knows. Yeah, Avon knows.
No. They both know. Everybody knows. This is their life. This is their game. Everybody knows. Everybody knows. I mean, we all know. Check your TVs. We know the Colombians. We know what that is about. Like that. That's not so. Anyways, no. To your answer, no. I think what the initial scene, like, because even when I was watching it today, I keep getting confused by it because I'm like, is this Stringer setting it up? So I get it from that point. I think if that had happened to Avon handles that situation a little bit differently in terms of how he deals with the people and everything like that. I think this is setting up Stringer to be a more calculating person where he has them followed and watched and make sure we know every single person's move, and he confronts them with numbers to see if they lie just as a checking point. Like, I think that's setting up later stuff with the rest of his team. But in terms of this situation, they thought the drugs were there and the drugs were not there.
So that is episode 1, Ebb Tide for season 2.
Season 2.
Yeah, it's gonna be.
Hey, Ziggy's my MVP for the whole season.
Ziggy's gonna have. I'm sure Ziggy will have an MVP episode. I'm sure he's gonna have one. I'm sure he'll have one.
I know which one
he's gonna have an MVP episode without. As always, thanks to Robert Sapp for joining the program. We will see you next time.
Again, be healthy out there.
Yes, please. These cases are going up and fast and furious. Please listen to the doctors, listen to the health experts, listen to Dr. Fauci, because it is not a game out here without question. Be safe, be healthy, and we will see you next week. Thank you, sir. That's going to wrap it up for this latest edition of the Ril Dil podcast, Wire Remixed. I will have this podcast posted up before the end of the night. I will see you later on this week with a podcast. I'm out.